This is the second regular meeting for April 2020, and at this time I would like to ask Mr. William Spears if he would come up and say the invocation. Yesterday afternoon we had a terrible tragedy here in the county. Pike Circuit Court Judge Steve Combs passed away unexpectedly, and we have lowered the flags at the courthouse and at the Hall of the Judicial Center to have staff. And William, I'd like to ask you to remember Teresa and Stephanie and Amanda and Noah and the rest of the family in your prayer. And then I'd like to yield to, after roll call, to Ronnie Robertson to say a few words, because he was a lifelong friend of Judge Combs.
Father God, we come to you this morning, Lord, seeking your guidance, Lord, for this court, that in this time of trouble with the pandemic going on, Lord, and the circumstances that we're all facing, Lord, we pray that you guide and direct us, Lord, that we could get through this in the safest manner possible, Lord, do the things that are right for this county and for these people, citizens and the workers. Lord, we also ask you, Lord, to please remember the Combs family, Lord, the children that are left behind and the family, Lord, and remember Judge Combs' family, Lord, and his upstanding commitments to this county, Lord. We ask it all in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Judge Jones?
Present.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
We have a quorum. We're ready to proceed. Before we say the pledge, I'd like to ask Commissioner Robertson if he'd like to address the passing of his lifelong friend, Judge Steve Combs.
Steve is like a brother to me. He always thought about the city of Pikeville. He thought about Pike County in a whole, and he always tried to do what was right, you know. It's a big loss to our community, losing him. I think about Amanda, Stephanie, Noah, and Teresa. Just wish everybody keep them in their prayers, and it's going to be a real tough time by his loss. Thank you, Judge.
Commissioner, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is approval of the minutes for the April 2nd and April 7th meetings. Is there a motion?
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Booth. Any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. In your packet is something that we have received, and this is a resolution if I can find it. Jeannie, where is that resolution in here?
I'll give you one.
I don't have one in my packet. Well, yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I do. It was mixed in with the minutes. I apologize. This is a resolution that we've been asked to do. A company called Charo Corporation, which was incorporated in Kentucky in 2016, for the purpose of developing, building, owning, and operating a renewable-based, hydrogen-based, coal-based gas turbine electric generating facility I would like to have had Roger Ford, the proprietor of this, to come before the court. We, of course, have social distancing and other requirements in place. It is just basically a resolution in support of a project that they're trying to develop here. And I'll let you all take a look at that because I don't think you've had an opportunity to address this. We just got this over to the office yesterday. And basically it just says that we support a proposed project between this Mount Moriah Energy and Charles Corporation and provide assistance to the extent we can. With no financial obligation to the county. You all have any questions or anything about it? All right. Is there a motion to support this resolution that's in the packet?
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Robertson. Any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. All right, the next item is authorization for the execution of the court facilities local government reimbursement form for 2020-2021 for the Pike County Judicial Center. Frankie, would you explain this, please?
Judge, this is our annual agreement with AOC. They said that they, per this agreement, they'll reimburse the county in 4 quarterly installments for their expenses throughout the year, and then at year end, they'll have a audit and settle up any unpaid expenses at that point.
Does anybody have any questions about this? Yeah, this is the annual reimbursement up to $519,000. And is there a motion to approve the execution of the court facilities local government reimbursement form for fiscal years 2020 to 2021 for the Pike County Judicial Center and authorization for the judge executive to sign all required documentation? We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. The next item is authorization for the execution of a lease for the Buskirk Park. I know that Judge Hickman and Mr. Keene, have you all prepared that lease yet? Is it ready or? I don't have it in my paper. Okay. So essentially, Reggie, you want to explain this to, you've worked on this more than I have. This is the property that sits over on the left as you're going down the hill there at Buskirk before you go across the bridge into Matewan. It's before you turn left down to River Road. There was an old county park there, and recently we had Public Works take out some old fence posts and stuff there that were a hazard for people walking beside the road. I think at one time there may have even been some playground equipment in there years back, but it's really not used. And we've looked, the county was granted that property many years ago. We can't, it's been so old, the county's had it so long, we can't even find a deed for it. But there's a gentleman that is wanting to, the gentleman that, Ronnie, I think you've been over there, met with, is wanting to create this campground and to rent ATVs and things. He's wanting to lease that property to do a ATV rental or a campground rental office.
Correct. That's correct. The entire space will be used for a small office and ATV rental. And that would support his trail initiative and his RV parking or RV park initiative that he's doing over there.
It'd be like a check station,
Yes.
check in.
One of the things I would say is, a lot of people are down right now. They're depressed over the economy. And we've had some really tough breaks. But, we're going to do what's right and responsible financially, and we're going to put a system in place that will give the absolute best service we can. And what I told Commissioner Tackett is, as soon as we can get these social distancing restrictions lifted, our goal is to get this trail system up and running. That's one of the main goals that we have, and we've made a lot of progress on it. We probably would have already announced it and been able to move it forward, but for this the pandemic. I think it's an economic development opportunity. I think it's a tourism opportunity. I think there's a lot of people in this county that would like to be able to get out and socialize and ride, and we'll be able to bring people in. And I think Mr. Hatfield, I believe is Chauncey Hatfield, I think is the gentleman that's working on this. He is willing to make an investment of his money to help us do this. I think this plays into what we're trying to accomplish. They've got property down there to do a campground. And the benefit to that to the county is it will generate net profit tax, it will generate occupational tax, it'll bring people in who are going to spend money here and help our local businesses. It's probably the biggest recreational activity in Pike County is ATVs and side-by-sides. So it would be my recommendation that we let Mr. King prepare a lease for this property at a nominal rent. The property's not being used, and really it's a liability to the county in that we're having to cut the grass. We've got, like I said, we had to go over there and take these fence posts down because they were a hazard. And, I never did understand, even when we were all running for office, why that property had been allowed to just basically, weeds growing up in it and fence torn down and posts sticking up. So is there a motion to authorize Mr. King to prepare a lease for that property to lease it to Mr. Hatfield? And then we'll have to come back when it's prepared and review it and authorize the execution of the lease. Is there a motion to authorize Kevin to draft something? Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tackett. Any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. Next item before us is a second reading of a proposed ordinance amending the Pike County Administrative Code, Section 472, regarding layoff of hourly employees. Mr. King, would you like to just explain that? The reason that I had asked Kevin and that we put this on the agenda is given the emergency circumstances that we're dealing with and the ever-changing circumstances that we're having to deal with, and the financial implications it's having for the county, I don't think that it's reasonable that we be able to give 2 weeks' notice because we can't predict what's going to happen from one day to the next during this pandemic. We don't know we know it's going to have some implications for the occupational net profit tax. We know that it's going to have an implication for our county road aid money. Plus, we've all talked about the other issues we're dealing with, increasing costs of pensions and health liability and workers' comp insurance. So, Kevin, would you please present the second reading of this?
Yes, as you said, Judge, this is a second reading, so a motion and a vote will be appropriate after this reading. This is Section 2 of Section 472, entitled Layoffs, Hourly Employees Amendment. Section 2 would read in its amended form, after court approval, the employee will be given a written notice by his or her department supervisor of the layoff. This written notice shall state the following: A, notify the employee of the layoff, and B, explain to him or her the reason for the layoff. And for the commissioners, as Judge Jones said, the change on this is only that the 2-week language has been excised from the original form of the ordinance.
Is there a motion to approve this amendment to Section 472 on the second reading? We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second?
Hey, Judge, can you explain a little more about this whole situation as far as,
Yeah.
after it's,
It's what?
if it's passed, like
If it's passed,
where the,
it would basically do away with the 2 weeks' notice
Okay.
because
are we still gonna allow them anything like if we're getting rid of them or anything like that?
as far as
Are we gonna give them any,
well, we don't have authority to do it. We haven't, of course, we haven't made any decisions on personnel reductions, even though it's something that I do think we've got to discuss today. One of the issues is if you don't make this change, it prolongs, you're hamstrung if you do have to make other emergency reductions, because it may not be possible for us to give 2 weeks' notice. Now, that doesn't mean that we could not vote to extend health benefits for a period of time or something along those lines.
or giving them a pay too?
And if at some point the federal government, and there's talk about federal aid for counties and municipalities, but here's what we don't know. There's two things I would say. We can't budget based upon the possibility. I've got to have a budget to the court by May 1st. That's the goal.
Right.
We've got a draft of the budget that I'm going to be working on all next week, and we'll have a special court meeting before the 1st so I can present it. There's two things we're sort of waiting on to see is if we were waiting on the amended county road aid numbers. Now that's going to be, we're losing more than $200,000 in county road aid because of declining motor vehicle gas tax.
I mean, price of oil, what, closed
Well,
minus 37 yesterday?
It closed below, but our county road aid money is derived from the gas tax. When people buy a gallon of gas, there's 26 cents per gallon that goes to the state, and about half of that money goes to the county and rural and secondary program, the county and municipal road program. And as you know, people are not driving with the stay-at-home orders. Just in the last month or so, the reduction in fuel purchases in Kentucky, the gas tax doesn't change with the price of fuel because we froze the floor when I was in the legislature at 26 cents a gallon. And people don't realize that that's what pays for your roads in Kentucky. There's two things that pay for roads: the gas tax and the motor vehicle usage tax when you tag your vehicles. Those are how you pay for roads in Kentucky. People, other states do it differently. Some people, complain that Tennessee, you don't pay that tax on your vehicle every year, but their fuel tax is higher. So what we know is that we're going to take a hit of more than $200,000 that we didn't expect. We're also trying to see what kind of impact that the quarter that we're going to get on at the end of this month, occupational tax. Net profits, we have moved that to July 15th. So we're going to end up probably having to move 2 quarters, and I think Frankie would agree with this, that this quarter that's due now, that was due April 15th for your net profit, we extended that to July 15th to match the federal government and the state government. So that means that the occupational tax that would be due in July likely will get moved too, because you will end up with 2 quarters, but that'll be in this next fiscal year. We don't know what impact that's going to have on this year, and we obviously assume it's going to have an adverse impact on the occupational net profit that we're going to budget in the next budget.
Well, that explain, I just want the people to know that we're not doing this and we're not the only court that's ever changed in the handbook, rule book, or, And in the code book, we won't be the last one, but,
Well-
you know, this is more to help the county and the employees. So, you know, yeah, I'll second that.
The reason we're having to do this, and I think it's reasonable under the circumstances, is if we've got to make decisions, we can't prolong it 2 weeks because that could have a substantial financial impact on the county.
Well, there's another thing too. The state gave us an extension on our heavy trucks till July, so most people's gonna take advantage of that and not license those trucks until July, so that's gonna put money off too, you know.
We don't know, and, you know, we've tried to budget to where we've got a surplus, and, you know, people are saying, well, if you've got a surplus, why are you cutting? Well, it's no different than if you've got savings account as a person. If you spend that savings and you get left with nothing, we don't know where this is gonna go. We've got to complete the landfill project. We've got to do the Wolf Pit Industrial site. And I think there's some positives here. One thing I think that we can do moving forward, we've not been hit by this pandemic like other urban areas have. And I think there's an opportunity here to try to grow jobs here because this area's not been hit. And if this were to ever happen again, and likely at some point there'll be another pandemic. You know, there was one 100 years ago, and I may have mentioned this, my great-grandmother died when my grandfather was about 6 years old of the Spanish flu. You know, it happened 100 years ago. It could happen again next year. We don't know, but what this shows is that we are not as susceptible in this region as other areas of the country, and it may give us a leg up in trying to bring some businesses in. We're going to have to replace some of the road equipment, but in the meantime, we're going to have to make some reductions because we have to have a balanced budget. And if we underestimate our revenue, we can live with that. But if we overestimate our revenue in the next fiscal year, we could have to make some very painful cuts that jeopardize county government services. So if we end up getting help from the federal government, and what you have to assume is that the areas that have been the hardest hit are the ones that are going to get the lion's share of the money. We don't really know where that's going to go, but if we're conservative and fiscally responsible, and there's money that's appropriated for the federal government, then we can try to bring anybody that's lost their job back. We can try to restructure county government. But in the meantime, one thing I would mention to you is my budget's not going to have any reductions for fire departments. I met with some of the fire department officials. We're going to preserve funding for our fire departments. I think it's that important. But what I have cautioned them is in the future, maybe it's after this court's over, maybe it's if coal and mineral service tax keep declining as they have for the last 10 years, at some point, that's going to be an issue. But my budget that I want to submit to you will protect funding for our fire departments and will fund the existing senior citizens facilities that are still in operation at the rate that they were previously funded at. So we've made a commitment that we're going to take care of our senior citizens, we're going to take care of our first responders and firefighters, and we're going to honor that commitment.
Judge, I want to say this before we get any farther. Last Sunday night, I want to thank the fire and rescue squads, first responders that was out we was out till about 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and they was right there beside us the whole way, you know.
Well,
and they would go open other roads up too. I mean, for them not to get no pay, they put their life on the line just like the other people in this county and first responders.
Some of the, and we'll go into this in a second, but, you know, some of the fire departments we thought were in a better financial position than others because they had, you know, more aggressive fundraising. But now what we've got to worry about is those ones that were, say, running bingo. Well, now the bingo's shut down, so we've got to worry about our volunteer fire departments even being able to meet their budgets. Because one of the reasons the senior citizens centers had problems, the senior citizens program, just so the people will understand, they're not our employees. We don't run them. They're ran by an independent board selected by a representative from each center. But their budget was largely propped up by bingo revenue, and they're probably going to be, I would assume, because of the shutdown, somewhere around $50,000 short of what they had planned because of the declining bingo revenue. So we do need to have that conversation. Is it feasible to even budget bingo revenue to operate your senior citizen centers? To me,
And that goes along with fire departments too. You know, they're gonna take a big hit on this too.
So we're going to continue to protect the funding that we've provided in this budget. And I just wanted to mention that to you. I wanted to let people know, if people listen to that we're going to protect the funding. And as long as I'm judge, and I think this court will say, we're going to try to protect the senior citizens and fire departments, but circumstances could be beyond our control if that's not possible. But while we can, we will. So we do have a motion and a second to amend Section 472, and is there any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. I do want to just touch on this real quick. We had done so much to stabilize the county financially. We had cut wasteful spending. We scrutinized everything we're buying. We've expanded the inmate labor program. We've done things to make sure that we're collecting on solid waste. We had a gentleman yesterday called in, and he thought his landlord was paying, a very nice man. Turns out that the landlord hadn't been paying the solid waste, so that was a new client we picked up. We're finding people who like that, who had fallen through the cracks. We're doing everything we can to run it financially responsible, but there's things that have happened beyond our control, like coal and mineral severance. Not just coal, but mineral severance is declining. Increasing cost of insurance and those types of things, pension costs, we have no control over. But I do think that this court has done a remarkable job of living within its means and still providing services. And we're going to have to restructure some things, in my opinion. But our goal is to live within our revenue stream and not raise taxes. And I think the people out there understand how hard the economy is, and raising taxes is not an option. And this court has demonstrated that we are not going to raise taxes. We didn't raise property taxes last year. But when you don't take the compensating rate, it does limit our ability to continue to provide services. So anyway, Mr. Fannin, you are next up on awarding of bids.
Judge, first of all, I'd like to bring this court up to date on another issue. I contacted Russ Martin at Martin's Peterbilt this week about the possible delivery date of the Peterbilt trucks that we have ordered. I was kind of concerned because of this pandemic and shutdown going on. The original delivery date was expected to be the end of May or 1st of June. He said he did see a possible delay. He didn't know what length of time it might be because of this shutdown. He said, looking back, 2 of the trucks have been built. He's waiting on paperwork to be transferred from a closed office. He's also waiting on the body company to make available the bodies to put on the trucks. The second 2 trucks are in production, so we could see a delay in the delivery of our Peterbilt trucks, but we're just not sure how long it might be.
Well, I want you to call him and tell him that delays are not acceptable in this circumstance. We have to have those trucks. I mean, if they've got 2 trucks already done, let's get the bodies. That's putting more pressure on our solid waste department. So try to light a fire. We've got to get those trucks in.
We did have a bid opening on April 9th on bid number 17-2020, Pike County Detention Center disinfectant supplies. There were 3 bids received. The first bid, BWB Enterprise of Matewan, West Virginia, East Kentucky Organic from Pikeville, Kentucky, and East Kentucky Chemical from Pikeville, Kentucky. It's my recommendation that we award the bid to all 3 of the above-listed vendors.
And I assume that with the COVID epidemic that we've had to spend more money on disinfectant supplies in the jail. And fortunately, we've not had a case of COVID-19 in the Pike County Detention Center, and that's been truly a blessing. So is there a motion to award bid number 17-2020 for Pike County Detention Center disinfectant supplies to BWB Enterprises, East Kentucky Organic LLC, and East Kentucky Chemical Incorporated. A motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tackett. Any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
Before we go to the road supervisor's report, we do have a list of equipment in the packet about what's in the maintenance garage right now. I don't know, they wrote the vehicle numbers down, but they didn't tell us which vehicles these were. But it looks like there's 5 vehicles from the road department, or 5 pieces, and then same number for solid waste. So that was just for information there. All right. Next item is the approval of the Pike County Commissioners' recommended road maintenance list. Mr. Little is not in here due to social distancing. I think they've gone to get him. And before he comes in to speak to the court, is there a motion to approve the road department progress report that is in the packet? Or is there anything that needs to be added or deleted from this to your knowledge? So a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Robertson. Any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. And we're waiting on Mr. Little to come in. Mr. Stacy, would you like to go ahead and move to Treasurer's business, please?
Authorize the following interfund transfers for March 2020. Transfer $499,819 from the general fund to the jail fund. That'll complete the budgeted transfer for the jail for the rest of the year. Transfer $618,659 from solid waste to the maintenance garage fund, and that'll complete their half of their expenses for the year for solid waste. And transfer $1 million from the LGA fund to the general fund. We were going to transfer the money from LGA to the general fund to give the court more ability to exercise their discretion on how to spend that money. There's a law that right now that's in effect that postpones the requirements on the LGA fund of how it can be dispersed to other funds, and in June that law goes away. So we can go ahead and transfer that money out now to the general fund. That way the court can decide. They would have more discretion on how to disperse that to other funds than be restricted by the LGA fund laws once that comes back into effect.
I think that language was put into the current budget bill.
Yes.
For the next budget bill. So we'll still be able to move it next year if if it's in there. I need to verify that though. Statutorily, previously courts were limited on how they could spend the coal severance, the LGEA money. But
you could only transfer 30% to the road fund, and other than that, that money had to stay in the LGA fund. So if you were getting a lot of coal and mineral severance tax, you couldn't prop up the general fund or your jail fund with that money. Since I guess the coal counties have, the coal and minerals declined and their budgets have been really hard, they've kind of released that temporarily, that restriction on how it can be allocated to other funds. But my understanding was that that law goes back into effect in July. Then we would have our hands tied on how that money could be. If we needed to spend it out into other funds, we couldn't transfer it. But if it's in the general fund, we can.
What I'm saying is that the budget they just passed, I think, has that same language that suspends it in the next fiscal year, but we need to verify that. But we do need to go ahead and do this.
We can always transfer it back. Like I said, once it's in the general fund, we can always transfer it back to LGA if it's needed, but,
Prior to the end of the year, if that language is not in there, we would need to move all the money in LGEA over to the general fund. Is that correct?
This will take basically everything out of the LGA fund other than about $500,000, and in July, we'll spend that because the fire departments turn in their ISO rating request, and we'll get probably the majority of those in July. So I'll at least need to leave about $500,000 in there to cover that in July.
All right. All right, is there a motion to authorize the following interfund transfers for March 2020? Transfer $499,819 from general fund to the jail fund. Transfer $618,659 from the solid waste fund to the maintenance garage, and transfer $1 million from LGEA fund to the general fund.
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Robertson. Any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes.
Authorize a cash transfer from the following interfund transfers to transfer $618,659 from the solid waste. It'll actually be the solid waste checking account to the maintenance garage fund, which is in the consolidated account. So I'll need approval for a check to actually transfer that money because it's two separate bank accounts.
Is there a motion to authorize a cash transfer from the following interfund transfer? Transfer $618,659 from solid waste fund to the maintenance garage fund. We have a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Robertson. Any question or discussion?
I would like to say one thing, Judge, while we're on this maintenance garage. You know, we give that garage a lot of a cane because we think they spend so much of our money over there. We had a problem last week that when you're a truck driver and you're in a truck and that's the way you make your living, and you run the wheels off that truck and destroy I don't know how many hours work, plus wheels and a hub assembly. I don't think anybody on this court we're going to stand for that much. I mean, we're trying to save this county money, and we employ people to do a good job. And when you have something like this happen, I mean, it's just not acceptable. I mean, I think I'm speaking for myself and the other two commissioners and a judge. I mean, I don't know how it's been in the past, but this is just not right.
And so the public will know what you're talking about. We had a truck driver that drove a truck with loose lugs on it. Basically, the wheel ran off of it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Judge Hickman, was there a suspension because of that? Okay. Well, that's something we probably need to revisit today during our executive session.
I mean, if you do your walk around on your truck every morning, and I urge people that we employ to do that, they need to get out every morning, go around their truck, check their oil, check their wheels. I mean, if they've got a low tire, go get it fixed before it goes all the way down out while they're working.
Can I say something, just to interrupt you? Let's just be honest with the folks out there. There was a culture among county employees before we came in that they could pretty much do what they wanted to do with no accountability. They could treat this equipment bad. They didn't have to work hard. They would tell you what they wanted to do as opposed to what they were going to be instructed to do. And they were able to get away with that because they had votes in their family, or they were this person's grandson or that person's nephew. And we've not ran county government that way. It's not maybe been popular with some people, but when And I'll be honest, I think there's a lot of people that listen to this that probably didn't have a great deal of confidence in county government. We're trying to change that, and I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of changing it, and you're absolutely right. And when that came to my attention, I wasn't very happy about it, and it's something that we need to discuss today and in terms of where we go from there.
I just think if they do their walk around every morning before they get in their truck, he might have caught those loose lug nuts. I mean, if you're a trucker and drove a truck, and Brian knows too. I mean, and things like that won't happen, and it won't cost this county this kind of money. I mean, it's just not acceptable, so I'll just leave it at that.
I'm gonna say this. Anytime that you're working, and this is the taxpayer stuff, I mean, it's not ours. It's, none of these road lots is mine, Ronnie's, Booth, Judge Jones, or they're the taxpayers. And this is probably one way you can look at this. Is the way I would look at it is if I break that, I've got to go home and don't get paid. So I'm gonna take better care of what I've got to work with, and it may not be the best, but at least you got a job and you got something to work at. So, I mean, just keep it in mind, treat it like it belongs to you, but it's actually the taxpayers of this county. That's who we got to keep our time on.
And we've terminated people for doing this, and you know, the gentleman you're talking about's been a good employee, from my understanding, and but it's inexcusable. But again, it's something that there was a write-up, and if you get a second write-up, you're subject to immediate termination. And so we've changed the county code, because used to you had to get 3 write-ups in a year. Well, you know, that's 3 pretty big mistakes in a year in order to get terminated. Well, now it's 2, period.
That could be millions.
Well, yeah, it could
3
be.
write-ups could be millions of dollars in cost to the taxpayers of this
That's
county.
exactly right.
Yeah, and we've changed that, so the public will know we changed that.
And it's not we're trying to be hard at them, but you know, they got to understand. Look, that's how they make a living. Take care of it.
Well, you know, I've made this argument. We have a responsibility to provide our county employees with a safe work environment, to give them the equipment they need to do their job, to give them proper management and oversight so that the job is done correctly and efficiently. But at the same time, we also have a responsibility, and a greater responsibility, to the 50,000+ people in this county who depend on the services and pay the taxes and fees that run county government. That's who ultimately, that not only us, but all the other county employees have a responsibility to, and I think that's been overlooked. But I think this court's moved it in the right direction.
And we understand things can tear up, break down, but to continue the same old thing, the same piece of equipment, the same employee, the same whatever, it don't cut it.
Well, the administrative code now allows us to remove those individuals that previously were secure regardless of pretty much what they did.
Well, we're just here to watch that taxpayers' money, and I just think that's a big thing. You know, we look at the money we spend through that garage, and some of it could be saved, you know. Some of this don't need to be like it is, and that's what we need to change in this government.
Well, you know, when Karen Gibson did a great thing when they started the road maintenance garage, it saved the county a lot of money. And we've asked them to be more efficient. We've asked them to get more work done. We've asked them to tighten the ship up over there, and I think they've done that. I think JJ and Darren have done a great job, and all the people over there, I think they're working harder. I think we had some changes that we had to make when we came in at the maintenance garage. And I think we're seeing, and I think you would agree with me, Commissioner, that we've made some progress in terms of making it run more efficiently. But it's not fair to the guys at the maintenance garage when people are abusing equipment or destroying equipment. It's not their fault.
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, you know, we look at the garage, has to fix this, has to fix that. Some of it could be prevented, you know, from having to do that if the drivers will just take care of their vehicles better. And we're trying to get newer trucks for them to work in, and that's even more reason to take care of your truck better.
And we've held people accountable for not, we're requiring them to clean their vehicles, you know, I mean,
It's just not truck drivers, it's equipment operators, it's foremen, it's solid waste, it's, you know,
Just take pride in what you got to work with.
Yep.
I mean,
you know, that's one thing I've always noticed about Commissioner Robertson's vehicles. They're all clean. I've never seen one of his vehicles dirty in his business, and,
well,
you know, you show pride in what you do, that translates into the work you do.
I want to make that comment to the garage over there because I know they work hard, and I know they don't really want to get into it, say this happened or that happened, but, you know, I appreciate JJ and all those mechanics over there because they do one hell of a job, I'm telling you.
Well said. All right, we're gonna go over back to the Pike County Road Supervisor, Fabian Little. Mr. Little, welcome.
Judge,
And-
we have a,
Oh,
we have a.
I'm sorry, I did pass over two, didn't I?
We got a motion and a second on that, but we need a vote.
Okay, well, that's what happens when you don't wear your glasses. You get off on a tangent. It doesn't take much right now, Ronnie, for me to do that. All right, we have a motion, a second, to authorize a cash transfer for the following interfund transfer $618,659 for the solid waste fund to the maintenance garage fund. We have a motion, a second. Seeing no other question or discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. Frankie, the next one, please.
Authorize payment of the expenditure approval list dated April 17th, 2020, and any other utility and telephone bills received before checks are run, which will be Wednesday.
Looks like the total for this payment list is $790,810.64. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell you what, let's do this, because given the social distancing, the commissioners have not had an opportunity to look over everything on this. I've got a couple questions I need to address while we're going to take a lunch break here in a few minutes, and we can come back to this one. Let's skip over the expenditure list till we come back after executive session. Would that be okay?
That's fine.
All right. So the next one, Mr. Stacy.
Acknowledge receipt of the treasurer's quarterly financial statement ending March 31st, 2020.
That is in your packet. Is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of the treasurer's quarterly financial statement ending March 31st, 2020?
motion.
Motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Booth. Any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes.
Acknowledge receipt of the sheriff and the clerk's 2550 report for March 2020.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the sheriff and clerk's 2550 reports?
Motion.
A motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Robertson. Any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. We'll skip over that. Frankie, if you'll remind me, we'll come back to that other one after we take a lunch break. And then we can probably just order lunch while we're in executive session. I would advise everyone at Pike TV that we're probably going to be in executive session for an extended period of time because we have a lot of personnel matters to attend to. Mr. King, would you please instruct? I'm sorry. Yeah, Fabian, why don't you go ahead? Did you have anything you need to address? We've already approved the work progress report for the road department.
Judge, the only thing that I would like to say was just what a good job that the road crews have done through this storm, this recent storm with all the trees down. And it also goes back to what you all had said before. You know, this is one county, so we pulled crews from 5 and 6. That would be the Phelps area, the Belfry area, and then also the Johns Creek area over into to help out in Robinson Creek area and Marbone, because those were the two hardest hit, and we were able to get people moving fairly quickly by doing it that way.
We had the Belfry Road crew up on Island Creek, left fork of Island Creek, where I live.
Yes.
Bless you.
And that's what we talked about. You know, it's not just one area's road crew. If there's a disaster at Belfry, we'll send the Robinson Creek crew. We'll send, you know, and what it was allowed us to do was to get the storm damage cleaned up more quickly. When over in Commissioner Booth's territory a month or so ago, when we were all out looking at storm damage then, after we had some roads that were washed out up at Mud Lick and some other places. I think we were up on left Turkey Toe and some other areas over into Blackberry. And we had road crews from the other side of the county over there. And that's the way we're supposed to do this.
It is. It works a lot. It works better, and like we can get people in and out. And that was our main goal, was to get the roads opened up. And now we're back to cleaning up, and we've got a leg up on the cleanup, so we're doing pretty good there.
And I want to thank JB's crew for coming over from Belfry, Phelps.
Yes.
And bringing his crew over, and he got Cloy Creek cleaned up for me. I appreciate that.
We
Had a lot of trees down.
The crew from the Belfry lot told me that up on Road Fork on Island Creek, they had about 40 trees across the road in a 1/10 of a mile area. And we literally had hundreds of trees down, maybe thousands
I
of
think
trees.
it's 290 tandem loads as of yesterday, 10-wheeler loads
Yeah, I'd
of
say-
trees and brush, and they're still cleaning today.
Yeah, we were upward of 500 trees down. So, and mostly, like I said, that's just in 2 areas. That's mostly in the Robinson Creek and Marbone area.
And, you know, I do, you know, I've been critical of the power company from time to time when I was in the legislature, but their crews worked extremely hard. And we had people calling in here, and they were cussing out my receptionist because their power wasn't on. And I just want people to understand, our road crews in the fiscal court don't have any control over when power comes back on.
And also, I'd like for them to know also that if there's a tree laying in a power line, my crews cannot
We can't
touch that
touch it.
tree.
And we
until
had
the
that
power
come
company
up.
comes.
We had that come up at Grace Baptist Church,
Yes.
the road up to Grace Baptist. They asked us to remove, that's a county road, but there was a tree in the power line, and we can't touch that until it's de-energized. And, and the power company's taking care of that. We can't risk the lives of our road crews. But a lot of people were upset that it took 3, 4, 5 days to get the power back on, but I don't think people realize how much damage there was and how many, it may have been literally thousands of trees in the county. I know Floyd County Judge Robbie Williams had about 4,000 people out of power, and he said it looked like a war zone over on Left Beaver. And we had parts of Shelby Valley and over in the southeast part of Pike County that were similar to that. So
Sloan's Branch was the same way, and then, you know, also was, which it was due to this storm, but we had a bridge deck that completely washed off and went down the river. You know, 40 foot of a bridge was completely gone that we had to replace during this. And I'd like to commend those guys. They done a great job, and within
Within a day, wasn't it? I mean, if you put all the time hours together.
within one day, they'd poured the deck back on that bridge. So they done a bang-up job. They really did.
And clean up on top of that.
I mean, our road department's important, and, you know, they're facing some significant problems with equipment, budgets, and so forth, but we want to thank them.
Yeah.
And I will say this, likely, as we move forward with the financial constraints that we're going to be facing, it's going to prevent us from continuing the same number of employees in the same organization. People are going to have to expect less service from the road department because of the financial situation. You know, we're essentially trying to provide the same level of service in the road lots that we provided a decade ago with a substantial reduction in the revenue, millions of dollars less revenue.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's something that we're probably going to have to take a hard look at here today.
Fabian, I want to say this before we go on. I want to thank all 6 road lots, Thomas, Robbie, and we had a lot of citizens of Pike County, whether they had a handsaw or a small excavator, was out through that Sunday night and getting some areas cleaned where they could get people in and out, not only with the road departments. And I want to thank them. I mean, that means a lot to me when you got people that lives on the hollow that has got some equipment or has got a chainsaw that to me that was helping out, you know. And I want to thank them along with the fire and rescue squads too, because
They were out there with us that night.
you know, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, they was still right there doing their part. And like I said, they don't get paid nothing. But I want to thank every one of those.
Has anybody heard anything about our volunteer fireman from Marbone?
I talked to both Robert Atkins and Bubby Atkins this weekend. He was still in pretty bad shape. He's in and out, but he's still in pretty bad shape. So we want to ask people to keep praying for Jimmy Belcher, and he's very, very fortunate to be alive. It just shows how important our volunteer firemen are, and that's why we're going to make sure that we continue to fulfill our obligation to them.
I got one question. I'd loan them to you every day as long as y'all keep the damage over here and we don't have it over there. We was very lucky. I mean, we had some trees down, but we was very lucky that we didn't have no more damage than we did. But also, I know I've talked to you and I've talked to the judge back and forth about this jetter.
Yes.
Have y'all ever come to terms on what y'all want to do on that?
We have not.
Okay. All right.
We'll talk about that in executive session.
What was that, on which part of it? Can't talk about that in executive session. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've talked to Fabian, I've talked to the judge about the jetter that was looking at. It's a used jetter. The guy was either going to lease it to us, or he said that we could buy it, we'd keep it for a couple of weeks, and if we liked it, then we could purchase it. I didn't know I know I've talked to Fabian. Fabian had the idea of purchasing it. I've talked to you, the judge here. He's had the idea of renting it. I just didn't know where he was, because I know when we get a few more of these trees cleaned up and stuff, that I've got drains from the previous flood that we had that needs to be jetted out.
We've got one at Jerry Bottom that we need to look at using it on,
Well,
too.
we got 3 at Jerry Bottom. Me and Fabian's talked about one.
Got Rocky Road too.
We got several, so I mean.
Well, here's what I told, the lawyer in me says that before we just say, well, we'll rent it we need a rental agreement. Because what my recommendation will be, let's rent it for a couple weeks, but we need a rental agreement. Who's responsible for maintenance? Who's responsible for ordinary wear and tear? If something happens, we don't know the history of the jetter. We don't know if you get it, you take it out, and it quits working. We don't know there needs to be a lease done or a rental agreement that would specify this, because let's say you take it out the first day, you start using it, and it tears up. Then you into a dispute over, okay, was it ordinary wear and tear? Did the county employees do it?
I spoke to the gentleman 2 or 3 times. I mean, you can get Kevin to write something up. He told me we could take it out. He said if it blowed up, bring it back to him. He'd not worry about it. So, I mean, Kevin it'd be a simple lease, because he's not worried.
It's a one-page agreement
That's
or
what
something.
I'm saying. He's not worried about, he just said if the county could use it, he'd rent it to them or sell it to them.
And we could
keep it for 2 weeks. He said he didn't want to sell the county nothing because he knew the county was in a financial shape. He didn't want to sell them nothing that they didn't like. That's the reason he said keep it for 2 weeks. If you wanted to purchase it, purchase it. If not, that's fine. So your agreement won't have to be that much, because
what I think we could do is we could put an agreement together, and we've looked at buying a jetter, and just so the public will know, we were talking about, what was it, $80,000? How much was the jet? $87,000. So
Has he put a purchase price on this?
Well, apparently he was asking, was it $12,000? Here's what my recommendation would be, is let's rent it, let's use it for a couple weeks and see how it runs. You may not want it, and you may not want to buy it. On the other hand, it may be a great deal, and then we would jump all over it. We could put it in there that at the end of the 2 or 3 or 4 week rental period, we would have the option of buying it for X number of dollars. We could do that at the special court meeting that we're going to have to present the budget to you all. Okay? So, but that way it protects the county, it protects us to make sure that if there is some kind of dispute, and it tells us what the price will be. And it may or may not be what the county needs, but we also, now we had 2 jetters, the county, and this is to go back here. The county had 2 jetters, and county employees, and I'm going to say one of them was wrecked. Is that correct, Fabian?
One of them
Was destroyed in an accident.
no, they were both, no,
I thought one of them was.
no, they were both,
I think they pump on one of them,
pump and motor on the other.
something else on the other one.
Can we take those two and make one?
No, we tried.
Okay.
I actually talked to JJ, and the pumps were different. We were thinking about taking the pump off from the one and putting on the other one.
Different brands.
But here's what we need to do. Fabian needs to hand pick the crew that runs it,
That's exactly right.
because
But that is
let's
a
be
needed.
honest. Let's just be honest here. You've got some employees that are more diligent and more attentive to detail than others.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be a deal where we're going to have it going from lot to lot. It's going to be a crew that runs it.
I agree.
If they tear it up, it's their responsibility. And they need to understand that.
The way, that's the reason he wanted us to try it, because he didn't want us to purchase. So, I mean, he really don't want to sell it, but he said he would to help the county out. Price was so cheap. He wanted you to take it and try it and make sure the county wanted it before they put dime in.
Well, we've got 4 or 5 places that needs
yeah.
it, so.
Oh, it's needed. It's very
It's
needed.
needed, but let's let JJ and the crew at the maintenance garage, before we decide to buy it, let them look at it. Let them go through it, make sure it's in good shape, because, I don't want to buy something, and I'm not going to buy something. I won't vote for it. I mean, I'm just one vote. There's 4 members here. I'm 25%. I personally ain't going to vote for something unless they tell me it's in good shape, because, we don't know the history of it.
True.
No, that's the reason he said use it.
That's what I'm saying. That's why before we buy it, we need to try it out. It's like a car. You take it for a test drive.
Right.
I think that's a fair deal.
So while we're taking a recess for lunch, you can get with Kevin, give him the guy's name. We need a model and make of the jetter. He can throw something together. We need a rental price. I think it was $50 an hour. But the county needs a jetter. And if you don't know what a jetter is and you're listening to this, that's what you use to clean drains out. And part of the damage to these county roads is these drains are stopped up.
Water problems.
What's that, Fabian?
Water problems.
The water backs up and ends up washing it out. So if we've got a jetter and we keep these things cleaned out, then it'll save the county a massive amount of money in the future.
Yeah.
And there's no excuse for the county not having them, but it goes back to what I said. You've got some employees that have done a better job taking care of this equipment than others. Now, we'll go back and say this. I don't know what kind of condition those other jetters were in or where they got them or what they paid for them. Maybe they were just worn out, like a lot of the other stuff that we've inherited. But we'll get together, Brian, and get that drafted. That would take Mr. Keene.
We should know.
He's a master at drafting stuff, so.
Hey,
Easily in 2-3 weeks, you know if it's in county or not.
We would.
Fabian, I got a question.
I'd say it's something we can.
I'd say we could negotiate that.
That's something
I
I
think that's
just
a good
want you
idea,
to,
Frank.
I'm sure he will, because.
Want to sell it for X number of dollars. If we try it for a while and we don't want it, then we'll pay the bill.
Right.
I'm sure if we do buy it,
Brian knows him. He can talk to him about that.
because he's trying to help us any way he could, though. I mean, that's the reason he said take it, keep it before you purchase it. I mean, how many.
He offered to let us use it, but I don't want to do that. I personally, the lawyer in me does not want to do that because, it tears up and, then you end up in a lawsuit over what it's worth. That all needs to be ironed out before you do this. Would you agree, Kevin? Kevin?
One option you may have Demonstrate the jetter. If we've got drains that are backed up and need the service right now, if he's willing to come out and show Fabian and show JJ how this thing works and how it operates and show us whether it works or not, we may be able to get the benefit of a trial run without having to jump through all these hoops. One other question I would have, and with it being $12,000, it's probably out of warranty, but I'd like to know if there was a warranty on this equipment, and if so, if it's assignable. So I'd like to look at any paperwork he might have on the documents.
I'd say it doesn't have any.
Probably not, but just as a catch-all, it wouldn't hurt to check. But if we do decide to go the route of a short-term lease to try this, if you'll get me the identifier on the make and model and the fellow's name, we can knock that out in short order.
Fabian, have you already talked to JB about it, a little bit about the jetter?
The JB?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
I just know that he's got the biggest garage to keep it in, and it'd be a good place to be in the wintertime, you know.
Yeah.
Because it all started, I told him I got a jetter, just come get it and use it.
And I have seen the jetter. It is a good-looking jetter. So I don't see, you know, if he gives us the option to let's try it out, you know, for a few weeks or something like that. I mean, I think it'll.
Well, we definitely can put it to use. We have.
We've got a bunch of places that needs it.
That's right.
Use it every day for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. Commissioner Tackett, was you?
Yes, I just, last court meeting, we didn't get a chance to discuss it. Just give us a little update on the Penny Road Bridge.
Oh, yes,
You know, I think.
yeah, the special crew, Thomas, and then with myself, we were able to go in and shore that bridge up. We actually put beams in place of the telephone posts. And the state come back through, inspected it, and they put a 16-ton weight limit sign on that bridge. So the bridge is good now. And then we had put in for discretionary funding to try to get a bridge. We've not heard back on that yet.
All right, like I said, I just want to give the
Right.
people in that area, because I mean, that's their only way in and only way out,
It is.
you know, and I had a few calls on it over the past years, so, and then when this here all blowed up with the pole dropping out, high water, but what I seen of it, I looked at it, y'all done a great job.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Anything else we need to do? You don't want to take a lunch recess and then come back in and go to executive session? You want to do it that way? Y'all tell me what you want to do, or do you want to go order while we're in executive session? You don't want to just take a recess and go grab something through a drive-thru or something? I guess we can do that, can't we? Or just could we go into executive session and then run out and get something? We'll just go ahead and do enter into executive session, and while we're in there, we'll just run out and grab a sandwich or something before we come back and reconvene. So is there Mr. King, would you please instruct us on the relevant provisions of KRS 61?
It's 61.810, subsection C, to discuss pending litigation, and F, to discuss the specific personnel matters that we need to address today.
And I do want you to give the court an up-to-date. I tell you what, while we're here in discussing this, or we can do it when we come back.
I can do it quickly if
You want to get an update on the RCC Big Show? Mr. Keene has obtained a judgment against RCC Big Show. I think it's very good news. Kevin, would you tell us where we are with that? We can't go into specifics, as you know. We don't want to discuss litigation strategy or where we are. But, you know, this is something that Mr. Keene and I are doing, no cost to the county. He's doing his assistant county attorney. I'm helping him because, you know, it didn't make sense for us to spend more money hiring outside counsel to try to recover this. But, you know, Kevin, you can go ahead and fill them in on it.
Yeah, as the court's aware, and as the folks in the county that's kept up with this is aware, there was an agreement entered into where the county made a loan of $400,000 to a company called RCC Big Show to develop some technology here in Pike County, and it didn't work out. They ended up going to Floyd County, and as I understand it now, they're doing nothing. they made some payments on the $400,000 loan, but left $300,000 outstanding. The court voted and we filed suit to try to obtain that money. And so far we've been unsuccessful in collecting, but what we have been able to do is there was an argument made by RCC Big Shoal that the terms of the agreement had been modified, and they filed motions with the circuit court here in Pike County to try to enforce those, and we were able to overcome their arguments. The court ruled in our favor and actually entered a judgment for the county and the Development Corporation for $300,000 plus 25% per annum interest. I have propounded post-judgment discovery to RCC Big Shoal to try to find out what, if any, assets, bank accounts they may have here in the Commonwealth, as well as any contracts, anybody that owes them money, things of that nature. I have not got responses to those yet. We have also filed, I anticipate that they don't have anything here in the county, just to be quite frank, or here in the state. We've also filed a motion to amend to bring in the principals of the company, Mr. William Johnson, who's from Chicago, and David Farmer, who are from California. We do have information that they took significant monies out of this company. I don't know what, if anything, they put back in. But we have filed a motion to amend the complaint to bring them in personally to attempt to what you call in the law pierce the corporate veil, to try to get through the corporate structure to get to the individuals that may have actually taken and used this money. The motion has been sustained, and we're trying to get service on these individuals now, so we will see how that goes in the future. We may have to reach out to California and Illinois to try to facilitate this in the future, but that is where we're at now.
We can get service on these guys individually because by serving the Secretary of State, because they've under Kentucky's long-arm statute. Long-arm statute's a way to get jurisdiction over what's called personal jurisdiction over people who live outside of Kentucky. So in essence, we also, frankly, we do need authorization from the court to issue a check to the Pike Circuit Clerk's office for service on these gentlemen. I don't think that may not been sent out yet.
I'll have to check on that. I do not know the answer to that.
Let me just ask you. Okay, we'll have to get that for you, and we can do that and come back in and do that. Just remind me to do that, and we'll call and see if we'll check on that. But that's something that we do need to do. We can serve them on the Secretary of State's website. They got $300,000. They owe the county north of $1 million.
With the interest, that's correct.
With the interest. I would be happy if we could just get our principal back, which is $300,000. That's $300,000 would go a long way to helping us get the Wolf Pit industrial site done. It's $300,000 we could spend on a trail system. It's $300,000 that we could use to spend trying to get people back to work in this county. That's that's still our goal here, is to get through this pandemic, get our trail system done, get our industrial site done, and we got to start selling Pike County. And I think the trail system has a lot to do with how we sell Pike County. So, anyway, also, the Golf Academy, did we ever get those documents issued or executed yet?
We have not. There is an issue with a signature on behalf of the golf board that I am currently working through, and Mr. Patton needed to get some materials out of the garage at the golf course before. I wanted all of his property removed before we entered any final agreement so that it was completely clear when we walked away from it. And the pandemic struck about the time he was doing that. So I don't think he's been able to make arrangements to get the remainder of the materials out there. Maybe a mower and some other things over there, but we're working through that. From our standpoint, I do have the agreement that you've been authorized to sign, and we can actually sign that and send it back, but I won't have a final agreement from the other side until such time as he removes the materials from the golf course.
Right. Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to enter into executive session? We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robertson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. We are in recess for executive session. We'll return on call of the chair. Call the Court back to order, and we have been in a prolonged executive session for somewhere near 8 or 9 hours now, and I'll explain the reason for that momentarily. At this time, is there a motion to adjourn from executive session? Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. The next item is we're going to go back to Treasurer's business before we get into the other more pressing matters. Is there a motion to approve the bill payment list as submitted? We do have some questions that were I think after that, the court, would you all repeat those questions so we can get on the record so we can get those looked at?
I think that was the one from,
It was for Appalachian Wireless for some security cameras that were bought for the scale house at the landfill.
yeah.
You were able to figure out what that was?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So is there a motion to approve the bill payment list?
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. And I would have a motion that we authorize payment to the Pike County Clerk and the Secretary of State for service of process in the RCC Big Show matter in an amount not to exceed $100. And that way we can get service of process against the two defendants that we have named in our amended lawsuit. Your motion? Or a second,
Motion.
I'm sorry. I made the motions or second.
I second it.
Second by Commissioner Robertson. Any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. So I want to update the public on some information that we have been dealing with. You know, I think there's some opportunities that Pike County can move forward once we get through the pandemic. There's some things that we've had to deal with in the last year that we inherited. There's some issues that we have had to deal with that were unexpected. And then, of course, I'm not sure that anyone in county government that's alive now who has ever, I should say, served in county government has had to deal with the pandemic situation that we've had to deal with. When we did the budget last year, Mr. Stacy and Judge Hickman and myself, we went back 5 years on our revenue and 5 years on our expenditures to make sure that we came up with a budget that was accurate, that did not overstate revenue. If you overstate revenue in the budget and you appropriate money that turns out you don't end up receiving, then you have substantial cuts to make. Last year, we budgeted $2.1 million in coal and mineral severance. That was based on our analysis of the previous 5 years and the fact that coal and mineral have been declining since at least over the last decade. When you go back to 2010, Pike County received more than $12.3 million in coal and mineral severance. We received the numbers for our fourth quarter of our fiscal year. This is the fourth quarter of coal and mineral severance. And we, right now, on the $2.1 million budget for coal and mineral this year, we are $638,590.08 short. That is a cut, or that is a deficit that we have based upon the fact that our $2.1 million budgeted for coal and mineral severance only brought in $1,461,000. That's through nobody's fault. No one can predict what's going to happen with the coal industry, and to see the mineral severance fall in the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, our mineral severance was almost $140,000 below what was budgeted. And if you go back to the first quarter of the year, we actually received more mineral severance than we had budgeted. but the last quarter was $139,941 short, and the two preceding quarters were $67,000 and $63,000 respectively short. So some other news that we received today is affecting both this year's budget and next year's budget. Because of the pandemic, we will be receiving $202,000 less in county road aid next year than we received this year. That money is used to pay salaries and benefits and to operate our 6 road lots that serves more than 1,200 miles, services more than 1,200 miles of county roads. In addition, the third installment, which is about $292,000 that is due before the end of this year, we learned today that because of declining gas tax receipts, we likely will not receive that money. So when you combine the $638,590 shortfall in coal and mineral severance with the $292,000 shortfall that we're going to have from the from the county road aid money, that's nearly $1 million short this year. That's in conjunction with increasing costs of our insurance, $345,000 this year. And we know that going forward next year that we're going to see a decline in coal and mineral severance and also occupational net profit tax. We are working on a budget. We'll have a special meeting in the next week or so for me to present my budget to the court. That budget will be approximately $2 million less than the prior year because of declining revenue and increasing cost. That has led the court to do what many businesses have had to do. We are going to have to make reductions now so that we can continue to provide county government services. And I've said all along, if we don't have help from Frankfurt or Washington, if this continues, if the pension costs continue to increase, now we had expected an increase in pension costs of $270,000 this year, but fortunately the legislature froze the rate. But that's just deferring that for one more year. By the last year that this court will serve, the pension costs will be more than $500,000 over and above what we're paying right now. That is not sustainable. I know right now that Congress is talking about aid for cities and counties that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, but I have to have a budgeted number. I can't just budget on something that may or may not happen. Judge Hickman has something here for me. Thank you, sir. And so we are trying to do everything we can now to prepare for what we know will happen next year. If we do get some help, if the state will reevaluate aid to rural Kentucky counties, then we may be able to reverse some of these changes. But because of the situation, we are, in terms of getting the budget ready for next year, we've already identified $550,000 in line item cuts. That does not include any personnel costs. We have been back in executive session for hours upon hours trying to figure out a fair and equitable way to come up to the number that we need to arrive at in terms of cuts so that we do not end up in a poor or a worse financial predicament down the road. So with that being said, we've had at least one individual who has quit, and we're going to have to address that. But the court has discussed cuts in executive session that totaled nearly $1.4 million in staff reductions. Some of these people, or many of these people, are friends of mine. Many of these people have families. This is absolutely the worst day I've had as county judge executive, besides when Danny Taylor was killed. We've had some hard times. We've had some things that we didn't expect. And, losing Danny was an awful thing. And but this is a pretty bad thing too, when you're talking about decisions that impact the lives of your friends and family members. Some of these people have been friends, political supporters, golf buddies, people that went to church with my grandfather, people with young families, people I played football with in high school. And what we've tried to do is come up with a way where we are eliminating some administrative positions, management positions, and then the hourly workers that are being laid off and positions that are terminated are the people who are the most junior. We're making sure that those people who have been with the county government the longest, that we're not going to jeopardize their retirement, and we're not going to impair their ability to finish their careers and retire. We are eliminating, in most cases, almost all cases, the junior persons in those positions. So let me begin by saying this is a very, very hard decision. The court has worked diligently to do this fairly, and this is not the first court that's had to make hard decisions. I'm afraid as we go forward over the next 2 years, not knowing how long the pandemic will last, not knowing how long it will be before the budget has some stability, that this is not the last time we're going to have to make some very painful decisions. So with that being said, it would be my motion that we lay off the following individuals due to the financial concerns that we have. Ms. Sherry Skaggs, Mr. Vince Ratliff, Mr. Jimmy Sanders, Ms. Whitney Hall, Ms. Elizabeth Lell, Mr. Anthony Conrad, Mr. Randy Mullins, Mr. Scotty Mounts, Mr. Cody Young, Mr. Steve Burke, Mr. Patrick Daniels, Ms. Melissa Prater, Mr. Joshua Dotson, Mr. Justin Mayhorn, Mr. Grant Coleman, Mr. Keith James, Mr. Johnny Atkins, Ms. Samantha Maynard, Mr. Brian Fields, Mr. Tommy Wright, Mr. Clay Thacker, Mr. Robert Atkins, Mr. Matt Yates, Mr. Tony Dotson, Mr. Ronnie Dotson, Mr. James Thompson. Total workforce reduction will be 28 individuals. And as we've discussed, this is going to significantly impair our ability to take care of our roads, pick up trash, and administer county government services. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Robertson, and I know the members of the court would like to address this situation.
We've worked on this, I don't know how many hours. It's a painful decision we've had to make. It's hurting all of us. I know people depends on us to have them a job and work, but it's come down to either break the county or keep on going the way we're going, and it get worse by next year. I hate it for these people. I hate it for this county. But we come down to do what we had to do. We had to meet a goal of so much money, keep this county in good financial shape, and this is what we come up with. I just hate it. I hate it for Pike County, period.
Yeah, we put in a lot of hours back there trying to figure out the best situation for the county, depending on the way that we're in this. It's been tough. It's been a lot of back and forth. I wish we could do more. Hopefully a miracle will happen in the future that we can do better. It's just been it's hard to make decisions like this when it affects so many people that you know.
First of all, I want to thank the ones that had to be laid off tonight for their service for this county. Like the judge said, there are a lot of friends, people I've grown up with, knowed all my life. It's nothing personal. I mean, it's just tough decisions you got to make to move this county forward. And with the good Lord above, Pike County will be back on top. It's just going to take some time. You know, we never figured that we'd have to deal with a death with Danny Taylor as soon as we seemed like we took office. It's just a lot of slamming doors in your face to get where we need to be. And like I said, I just want to thank them for the service that they've given this county.
I think as we go forward, we do need to look at this list, and a lot of these folks have worked hard for the county. A lot of them have put a lot of years, in some cases, in for the county. And I just want to go back. When we first came in, we had to make some really tough decisions. Dealing with the solid waste shortfall, trying to make cuts, make sure that we're spending money wisely, make sure that, you know, even scrutinizing every dollar we've spent in our purchasing. You know, we found mistakes that were made. In one case, company won a contract and then delivered thousands of dollars of a product at the wrong price. Years past, that wasn't caught. We stabilized the county's finances. We felt we were on a great trajectory in terms of fixing the county's financial problems. Well, when we didn't think the coal and mineral service could fall any further, it did. And in fact, it was $638,000 below what we budgeted. And if you factor in the year before, like I said, go back 10 years, that $1.6 million that we budgeted, or I'm sorry, the $2.1 million we budgeted, looked like that would be the bottom, because we had gone from $12.3 million down to what we thought 2.1 would be the bottom, and it goes to 1.6 million. And the numbers we receive today, the estimate from the state is only $537,000 in coal severance tax for all of next year. $537,000. That's millions and millions below what the county was getting a decade ago. And even with an occupational tax, it doesn't make up anywhere near what we've lost in revenue. With the increasing costs, with the increasing pension costs, like I said, $345,000 increase in health, liability, and workers' comp. If we were a business, it would be no more sustainable for a private business than it would be for the county. And then when you throw in what we know will be a substantial reduction in our occupational and net profit tax, when one of our biggest employers is furloughed individuals, we have coal mines that have laid people off. We have a lot of small businesses, beauticians, hairdressers, people in private business that have lost their jobs. So this has been a very, very painful day for this court. It's been a very hard day. You know, I've practiced law for a long time. I served in the legislature for a long time, and I can tell you I've not had to make decisions in 26 years of practicing law as hard as I've had to make today. And I hope and pray that we can get past this. I hope and pray that these folks who are being laid off today will be able to find work, that our country can bounce back, and that we can get the country moving again.
Judge, I'd like to say something. You put on here your recommendation, and that was yours, and Ronnie seconded it. Well, we're all in this as Pike County, and I want to make a second on that too.
Thank you.
That way, you two ain't to blame for it.
Well, the law requires, and the reason I made the motion is that the county judge has to make all recommendations relating to personnel. So it's not something I want to do, but that's what the law requires, and that's why I made the motion.
I just felt that, you know, we're all one, and this was a decision we all had to make. And I'm not going to let Ronnie sit there and second it by himself, or you make the motion. I want to re-second the recommendation.
All right. If there's no other question or discussion, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. One other matter is, it is my motion that we terminate Mr. Justin Mayhorn effective April 13th, 2020. Is there a second? A second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. I think we're going to dispense with everything else unless there's an objection to that. Unless anybody else has anything they'd like to ask, I'd ask Commissioner Booth if he'd say the benediction. Unless y'all have anything else you'd like to add.
I just want to go back and thank all the first responders and all their road crews that got out and helped last Sunday night. All through the week, we had a lot of debris that we had to clean up, and I hope you all keep the Combs family in your prayers. Steve is a real good friend of mine, and he'll be sadly missed. Just keep him in your thoughts and prayers.
I did, like I said, I said it earlier, Ronnie, I think he's done said it too. I want to thank the people of this county, whether they had a handsaw. I think I had a call, a guy said he cut a limb out of the road in Little Robson with a handsaw to get out to go get his son before we could get up there to do it. Somebody was using a small excavator helping us. I just want to thank those people. You know, they're pillars of this community, this county. And also, like Ronnie said, Steve Combs will be very much missed throughout this county.
I need to go back. I want to go back. We need to go back. I made a mistake on the motion. It would be my motion that these layoffs will be effective on April 22nd, or at the end of the day on April 21st, 2020. Is there a second to clarify that? Second by Commissioner Robertson. Any other question or discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
It would also be my motion that we, if we can, under our health plan, this is something we have to check, if we can, under our health plan, that we would cover these individuals for health insurance up until the, I would think the end of the fiscal year, which would be June 30th. That would be 2 months, because we've already paid for April. It would be 2 months of health insurance coverage.
I don't see nothing wrong with that, Judge.
Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Tackett. Any other question or discussion? Seeing none, we don't know if we can do this with our health insurance, but if we can, we will carry these individuals' health insurance for 2 months. These individuals will all be eligible for unemployment and will also be eligible for the enhanced unemployment benefits that are available currently and that we hope will be extended by the federal government. So with that being said, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. And is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Booth. We didn't do the benediction. This has been such a long day and such a stressful day. I apologize. Commissioner Booth, would you say the invocation for us for the benediction?
Dear Lord, as we come before you tonight, dear Heavenly Father, watch over this country, dear Heavenly Father, and this coronavirus, dear Heavenly Father, and
Watch over the Combs family in the coming days, dear Heavenly Father. Go with all those families tonight, dear Heavenly Father, that we've discussed here tonight, dear Heavenly. With us through the remainder of the day, dear Lord, in Jesus' name.
Amen. Is there a motion for adjournment? Motion by Commissioner Robertson, second by Commissioner Booth. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes, we are adjourned.